The first thing I think we should talk about is Prince Andrew and all the various awfulnesses that he's been up to over the last 60 odd years.
I think probably all his life. And the problem is, poor Andrew was clearly something of a favourite of his mother. It's supposed that the younger brother, the youngest brother, Edward, was the absolute favourite. But clearly, if you remember back to, I mean, I'm so ancient, Prince Charles is only a year or two younger than me. Back in the 1970s, Prince Charles, or indeed the 60s, Charles was the loony one. He was the one who talked to plants, the potty prince, wonderful cartoons of him engaged, as apparently he does, in earnest discourse with a refractory lily of an exotic extraction. It sounds very Oscar Wilde to me,
With a medieval hand.
Well, yes, very much. I mean, like out of Gilbert and Sullivan, or going down Piccadilly and with a lily and the whole of pre-Raphaelite nonsense and whatever. And some of Prince Charles came from that. But anyway, to go back to the point of the Duke of York, he was seen as the sane, the sensible one, the ordinary one. He had a rather distinguished military career, good at fighting. And after all, that's the essential purpose. I mean, what the only Duke of York we remember, apart from the ones of the Wars of the Roses, is the grand old Duke of York, who was the Captain General of the army, marched his men to the top of the hill and marched them down again. He was good at that. And then he finds himself, of course, in this world where there's a expectation about marriage, and he finishes up with Fergie.
Of all people.
Well, yes, but at the time, she was a close friend of Diana. It seemed as reasonable as most of these things were, and I think in many ways he's a very typical Hanoverian. If you look at the history of the Dukes of York from the beginning of the 18th century, they're pretty similar. I mean, what do royal princes have to do?
Well, they have to have children.
That has always been the great issue. If we go back to the Wars of the Roses, the way you sorted out having too many sons was they murdered each other.
Yeah.
If you go back to the Ottoman dynasties, it was dealt with very simply. On the eve of the accession of a new sultan, all the new sultan's brothers were given concubines, given alcohol, and strangled with a single cord that morning. So you actually clear the decks, and you simply have the central figure there. So there has always been this problem of what do you do with royal princes. But of course, it's acquired a peculiar focus now, because back in the day, there were many other leading members of the aristocracy who behaved in exactly the same fashion, in the same way, of course, that film stars, pop stars, and whatever, the sexual excess, the absurdity, the grotesque financial excess, all of that. But the trouble is, it's caught up with the kind of expectations that the Windsor monarchy invented for itself.